Welcome to the last unit in this section of research methods. So we've made it all the way through the process of coming up with a research question. You know, what question are we going to answer? What problem are we gonna try to solve? Getting our background information about it. What do we know already? What do we not know? Where's a hole in the research that we can try to fill with our own project, and then doing the methods. How are you going to actually collect your data, or actually answer your question, actually do your experiment? How are you going to get the proper approval to do that? How are we going to make sure that it's ethical and that you've kind of thought of everything? And so here at the end, we're going to talk about just briefly what comes next. So after you collect the data, what comes next? And that's where we move into a whole other class, and that's going to be mostly in your statistics class. So some of you may have taken statistics already. A lot of you, I know a lot of the sport management students have not. So you'll be taking that maybe next semester. And so that's where we talk about you've got data. Now you've got these numbers. People answered your survey or whatever method you use to collect data. So now what do you do with it? How do you actually test it to decide whether the answer is yes or no, or more or less? So there are some definite ways that we do testing. So in this unit, we're just going to kind of on the very surface look at some of the basic statistics concepts and terms. And we're not diving in too deep here. There's a whole other class of that. But last week you designed instruments and started to look at the way that you might compare certain question scores or correlate relationships between two variables, maybe. So in this unit, we're going to be introducing a few of the different ways in which statistics are used to actually test your hypothesis. Was your hypothesis true or not? So there are some statistical tests that we do to decide that. So you are going to be working on your research proposal part 4 in this unit, which is the IRB permission form that any school, in this case UA Little Rocks, it's UA Little Rocks permission form that requires you to submit, that ULA requires you to submit before you do what we call human subjects research. So a survey is human subjects research. If your participant is a human being, that's what we call human subjects research, and you have to have a permission form from your institution's IRB in order to do that survey. So this is just a safeguard to ensure that any project done in association with UALR is meeting ethical guidelines. So the IRB asks you to turn in your study plan, basically. So particularly focusing on some of those ethical considerations that we looked at kind of early on in this class, such as how are participants going to indicate their informed consent? How are you going to let participants know exactly what you're studying, and making sure that they have kind of a full idea of what you're asking them to do, and they're going to give their consent. So that's just the idea of informed consent, and that's just an example of one thing that you're going to have to explain in your IRB form. So as you work on that, if it's worded in a way that you're not sure what they're asking, make sure that you ask me. The IRB has to be done in some detail, so it can't be vague. It's got to be detailed. So when I read your IRB, I should be able to see exactly how it is that you're going to be collecting that data, interacting with your participants, getting permission, from a school or a hospital to get that data if you're going to be using, an institution like that. If you're going to be collecting data from a school or a hospital, how are you going to get permission, things like that. So, and also, if you are going to be writing a thesis in your master's program, for example, if you're in health science, you might want to save this because you're going to actually have to do this when you collect data in your master's thesis. So you might want to save this, just like your CITI training that you did early on in this semester. Save that because you're going to be using that again in your thesis. So this unit is a little weird with the timing. The Thanksgiving was late and or finals week is early or something like that. So you can see that this unit is 3 weeks long, and it ends on the last day of class, which is December 3rd. So there's a lot of stuff due this unit because we're catching fall break kind of in the middle of this unit, and because it's the very last unit, so we got to squeeze everything else in, but it's not that bad. So 4 things due, 2 reaction assignments, and then the last 2 parts of the research proposal assignment. So I already talked about part 4, which was your IRB form. Part 5, the last part of the research proposal assignment, is mostly a reflection. So your 2 reaction assignments are about analyzing 2 of the broad categories of data, which are quantitative data and qualitative data. And I know that you've seen those terms before because we talked about them earlier this semester. So there's 1 assignment for each of those data types. You're going to analyze a quantitative set of data. And then one of my favorite assignments in this class is analyzing the qualitative set of data. So you're going to go to a website called StoryCorps, and you're going to do some theming and some coding on a few of the different kind of oral stories that you hear in StoryCorps. So I like that. I like that assignment because it's qualitative data. It's a little bit more of the personalized, human experience, human feeling side of data. So anyway, I just think it's cool. Also, there is a final exam on December 4th. So as I explained in the calendar on your syllabus, it will be open for the 24 hours that is December the 4th. After that, it's unavailable. So if December 4th is not a good day for you, for example, if you're traveling or maybe you have another big due date that day, it's no big deal for me to adjust it in your Blackboard for you as long as you communicate that to me before the end of the day on December 3rd. So I'm going to go home on December 3rd at like 5 o'clock, and I'm not going to check my email anymore that day. The final is going to open at midnight on December 4th. Nothing I can do about it after that point. So if you forget that December 4th isn't a good day for you, and I leave work on December 3rd and I haven't heard from you, it's too late. So if it's not a big deal for me to adjust it for you, but I've just got to know before that 5 p.m. on December 3rd if you need it on a different day. So after the calendar hits December 4th, there's nothing that either one of us can do. So just look at your calendar now. Be looking ahead at your work schedule, at your other exam schedules, at your if you're traveling for athletics or whatever. Let me know before 5 p.m. on December 3rd, and it's not a big deal. So I hope you have a good couple of weeks, a great Thanksgiving break, and we made it to the end. So I appreciate you. Again, I've said it a lot throughout this semester, but I appreciate you hanging in with me through this semester and kind of working through this process. It's a little bit of trial and error. So that's what my feedback is about. It's about you trying again the next week and moving on to the next steps. So I appreciate that. Have a good couple weeks. Have a good Thanksgiving break. I will talk to you again soon. I'll be communicating with some reminders again before that December 4th final. So talk to you soon.